Hi, everyone. I'm Kelsey Duggan, Quantic's Associate Director of Brand Marketing, and welcome to this special edition of Quantic Conversations. We're thrilled to introduce today's guest, Siddharth Rajagopal, Quantic Executive MBA graduate, Chief Architect at Informatica, and co-author of the upcoming book, Data as the Fourth Pillar, an Executive Guide to Scaling AI. In today's conversation, we'll explore Sid's entrepreneurial journey of writing the book, all while balancing his high-level career and his personal life. And we'll also dive into some of the core ideas behind the book, including how organizations can strategically treat data as the fourth pillar of enterprise success alongside people, processes, and technology, especially in this AI power world that we're all living in. And we know many of you out there in our Quantic community and beyond are passionate about data, AI, and all of these emerging technologies around us. We promise today's session is packed with insights on how to lead AI-ready organizations and why data-driven leadership is more critical now than ever. But before we officially bring Sid onto the screen, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. Today's session will run about 30 to 40 minutes long, and it will be recorded for future viewing. And if you're joining us live, welcome. We want to make sure that this is interactive, so please let us know where you're tuning in from in the comments. It's so great to see a few of you already commenting in there, and thank you again for taking the time to join us today. And I think now, without that, we are all set and ready to get started. So I am excited to officially welcome Sid to the screen. Hi, Sid. Thank you again for
Hi.
joining us.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to this discussion.
I'm so excited. We were chatting a little bit before we signed on to the live officially. And so we're so excited to hear more about your journey, your book, all of these amazing AI insights in the book and beyond. So I know many of us here, we're very excited to hear these insights, learn a little bit more about yourself and about the book today. So thanks again. So I guess just to kick things off, give our audience a little bit more of a backstory on yourself, the book. I'd love to know what inspired you to write data as the fourth pillar, and how did this idea first take shape and come into fruition in the first place?
That's a lot of questions in a question. So but I'll try to kind of fit each one of these. So, I mean, to introduce myself quickly, as you've done a great job, Kelsey, but just to add a bit of context more to it, as you said, my name is Sid or Siddharth Rajagopal. I'm actually based in the Netherlands, but I come from India originally, have a background in data management for 18 plus years in various enterprises. So in a way, you could almost say the seed for the book was planted in these 18 years of working with data and AI and everything around us. So actually, the way me and my co-author, and it was actually my co-author who prompted me to with the subject itself, and we kind of both saw it. My co-author, by the way, is called Sujay. So we kind of both saw it in our careers and our professional lives that data is picking up even more, but some of the way the board and especially the CXOs were handling data is still the same as it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So we felt from a technology, from a innovation perspective, there's a lot happening in this space, but still the way we are handling it from a strategic perspective and from handling it from an enterprise perspective is still largely the same it was a decade ago. So that was kind of the seed built, and like every entrepreneurial journey, and you very rightly said, Kelsey, writing a book is very much like an entrepreneurial journey. So we found first a kind of gap in the market, if you will, because there are many data books already around, but we couldn't find a data book which kind of addresses it at the strategic level. And hence, the title of the book as well, where we call data being the fourth pillar, and we'll kind of talk about it for sure. But typically, there's been three pillars: people, process, and technology as part of an operating model of an enterprise. So we wanted to add data to it. So that was kind of the reason. And then just to add a little more color, I mean, this was kind of the seed idea with the gap we found in the market. An important step we took, and we can talk more about it for sure, is we wanted, as soon as we got this idea, to find a publisher. And we wanted to write first, without going to writing a book, we first wanted to write kind of like an MVP, a 10-page about if we really understand and if we can kind of test the waters, if this is making sense beyond the two of us as co-authors, right? So So that was kind of the way we started with the idea. And just to share as well, we wanted to make sure we get a reputed publisher. So we actually found a great publisher, which is Taylor and Francis, also called as CRC Press or Routledge. So there's kind of different names across different regions, but they are really reputed and research-driven publisher. And that was for us great validation that it's not something we are just thinking about conceptually, but it's actually being validated by a publisher. And B, it's also for, of course, their distribution as first-time authors. It helps when you have the distribution muscle of a publisher like this, but also to validate that, especially as you said, in this AI-driven world, you could almost think, hey, is this book really being written, or is this an AI-generated book, right? So having publishers and having that stamp, of course, proves that it's been written, and each word of effort that we've put in actually is effort appreciated by the readers as well. So those was kind of the first set of thoughts. I'm sure we'll go deeper into it, Kelsey.
Absolutely. No. And thank you, Sid, because I know that was a very loaded question. So thank you for giving us the background on that. And I love how you mentioned you really do kind of go into the strategy of things in this, as we all know, ever-changing business landscape. And I love the fact that you do frame data as this fourth pillar, for the enterprise alongside people, processes, technology. Why is it crucial for businesses to recognize data at this level, especially, as you mentioned, in this AI power world?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, to pick up from where we left off, right? So it's kind of like a good question on top of the previous question you asked. So as you said, we found this gap that the current operating model of typical enterprises is looking at three big pillars. So people, of course, you require people, employees, partners, customers, stakeholders, insurers. So there's a whole strategy around people. There's also a big, well-established strategy around process. I mean, we have common business processes for different industries, across industry, for how do you do something. For example, in order to cash, there's a very defined process around how do you go from ordering a product to getting it delivered, to getting the payments in. So that these are very well established, and especially also from a tech perspective, and AI is part of that umbrella. There's well-established technology, patterns in place, and architectures, and budgets, etc. So we wanted data in the same line of thought as these three, right? For many reasons. As you said, AI being a catalyst, but even without AI, this is an important area because we saw some enterprises capitalizing on data and the kind of compounded value that gave to these enterprises. So this was kind of the reason. And as I said, we saw that, especially as you said with AI, a lot of boards, a lot of enterprises, CXOs started discussing AI very aggressively in their boardroom and charters, but still data was not coming in that charter. And we wanted to kind of shout out loud with the help of the book saying, hey, data is kind of fundamental to be able to also work with AI or any of the others. So hence kind of the focus and emphasis on data as the fourth pillar, as you said.
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned kind of the processes behind things. And I feel like these are, so instilled in businesses. And in your book, you introduce what you call the QCS framework. And so please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's quality, compliance, and speed as kind of a way to evaluate this data intensity. How can this framework help leaders assess their readiness to kind of adopt and scale their AI or future AI that they plan on implementing?
Yeah, I mean, great question. And I see you've done your research on the book. So you went into one of the important frameworks that we've kind of called out in the book. Because, I mean, now to build on the previous context, if we do want to make data the fourth pillar, there needs to be a proper framework, just how you manage people, process, and technology. So one of the frameworks we came out with is indeed called QCS, which is quality, compliance, and speed, as you rightly said. And that's basically a mechanism for leaders to start measuring how ready their data is. And this could be for various reasons. Because you want to know your data demand, because different use cases or different programs might have different levers of QCNS. So, for example, a very critical use case requiring AI, like customer service, might require high on all these three dimensions, because you don't want to take any risks with customer specific data being of low quality or medium quality, being incompliant, or speed in terms of how quickly you can deliver this data for that AI. Right? You need to be having up to date information. Whereas another use case could be something not as critical, could be slightly lower on any of one of these three levers. So just thinking out loud, maybe for a, a shop floor or a supply chain, speed and compliance and quality are all important, but maybe even if you have some data information 10 minutes, 15 minutes late, it may not completely bring the entire shop floor or a manufacturing floor down. Right. So depending on the use case or the program, the data intensity, which is another term we've kind of cleared or coined, can be determined based on these three factors of QCNS. And we kind of use these three terms generically because these three terms may apply for any business as well. Even for any business, you require your products in the business or services in the business to be categorized highly in these three kind of buckets. And the other benefit of kind of doing this is also to kind of measure how well you are prepared for your different business use cases in these three layers. Plus, what is the demand? Maybe you are preparing for very high speed, but maybe the demand from the business use cases isn't requiring high speed, right? So that way you can kind of almost balance your data initiatives or your data supply with the demand that is coming in if they are categorized in these three layers. So that, of course, I can't do justice in the depth of the book. So I would, of course, recommend all of us readers to look at the book when it's out. But this is kind of like a sneak peek, or let's call it a 101 of how we've kind of coined QCS.
Absolutely. And it's great. And thank you for kind of mentioning, and giving examples for these use cases, especially with, in the AI realm. As you know, especially, with your executive MBA here at Quantic, we are all extremely interested in all things AI. So kind of to take it a step further, I guess, what role do you see AI playing in kind of accelerating the value of data and kind of vice versa? I know you touched on it a little bit with that previous answer, but are there any examples that you've seen or that come to mind from your experience where kind of this synergy has been especially powerful?
Yeah, hopefully we go through this conversation without me revealing the entire book. So, but that's a great question. So just to give a bit of insight again from the book, in the book we called data and AI having kind of like a flywheel or a compounding effect on each other. What do we mean by that? At one hand, as we all know, there's a lot of possibilities and capabilities with AI. We are all excited with AI, and there's a lot of innovation possibilities with AI in the enterprise. But the value is as good as the data behind it. I'm a firm believer that over time, especially in a couple of years, AI will be commodity of sorts like technology is, right? What will be the differentiator for an enterprise is how good their AI is based on how good their data is. So the better the data, and better the data could be, again, going back to those QCS terms that we just talked about. But just to give an example, the better the quality of the data, the better the outputs given from AI, right? So that's kind of the flywheel effect of data and AI from one angle. But the other angle, which sometimes even gets overlooked, is AI could also help data to be much better. So you don't want data to be only managed and scaled by people, process, and technology, standard technology. But there could also be a role of AI to provide, like, as we call it, the flywheel effect towards data. So to accelerate manual repeatable jobs like understanding the quality of the data, or maybe even improving itself or self-healing the data based on previous patterns it's found, etc. So in that sense, we see like a flywheel effect of all this. And I mean, there's some great examples in the book given by Audi, which has provided a case study in each of our chapters of practical examples from their enterprise. So the data factory lead at Audi AG, which is the automotive company part of Volkswagen. They've kind of given a really good set of examples, which puts a lot of color into each of these concepts that we're talking about. But again, just to bring it back, we've kind of used a quote, and I'm giving more and more out from the book. We've kind of used a quote to summarize this question, Kelsey. We've said something along the lines like data is like fire. So fire has two properties. It has the property to destroy. So if you have not the right data in terms of QCS, it could even cause negative effects like fire causing chaos in our lives. But as we know, fire is also the base for innovation. Fire has been from where we've kind of evolved as mankind to coming out with so many cool innovations. So AI and data therefore has also the property of fire in the sense of it's allowing us to build completely new innovations, maybe even build the entire business strategy of an enterprise, right? So that's kind of the possibilities with data. It could be fire. Now, depending on how you think of fire, it could be negatively or positively.
I love that analogy, and I feel like that makes perfect sense when you think of AI as fire and the power that it truly has. And I know that you just talked about this a little bit in that answer, but really emphasizing the importance of delivering business value. So as you mentioned, throughout the book, you say it's not just, technical success with data. It really is focusing on business value as well, because that really is kind of what it all comes down to at the end of the day. So we love to give advice in these conversations. What advice do you have for business leaders trying to potentially align their AI efforts and still have that measurable, successful ROI?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a very important topic. So I'll kind of touch both on the AI side of things as well as on the data side of things, because in the book, we've also covered a lot about, KPIs or metrics of how you can start measuring value from data. Because a lot of times when I've had this conversation, both professionally and otherwise with, leaders, they've said, hey, we understand the value that data plays in AI or other use cases, but we don't know how to measure that value and share that value with our, CXOs to get more, buy-in or budgets for the future. Right? So the first thing I'll say is kind of, again, the book goes much more into depth in this. So I don't think I can do justice into talking about each of these metrics, KPIs in this discussion, but I'll kind of try to address the key points that I can kind of recall. As you said, the first is AI in itself does not create any business value. So it's very important for leaders, enterprises to look beyond the hype that AI has in the last created, especially the last couple of years since generative AI has been kind of exploded into all of our lives professionally and personally. So it's very important for enterprises to link AI and AI initiatives to their overall business strategy, their overall business value drivers. So in the book, we also talk about business capability maps or value stream maps. So typically, enterprises, especially of larger sizes, define different value streams or key business areas or domains under which they identify people, process, and technology today, and how they should be, working together in harmony to provide business value. We've kind of extended that to data, of course, data being the fourth pillar, and also extended it with a few AI use cases and how you should kind of test the waters of whether it is actually creating business value or is it just a cool showcase which looks cool on a demo but doesn't really offer much value. Right? So it's kind of important to go through that checklist of sort which we've kind of talked about in the book. The second part, going a bit deeper into data, because once you do define the value from AI, it's important that your data landscape is ready for that. And there, I think what we've done is, for the business leaders, we've provided a framework where we talk from two big angles. We talk from, as I said before, the data demand side of thing and the data supply side of thing, so that a data leader knows that they need to balance both of these. They can't be like on one hand, having a lot of demand coming from the business and they're not able to supply it. or they can't also go too much on the other side where they've built a huge empire from a data landscape perspective, but they don't have the business demand to harness the value from this. So from a data demand side, what we've done is build a bunch of metrics, but I'll just call out one key one, which I'm sure our quanticers would easily be able to correlate to. Very much like how you have a TAM, right? So you start typically by looking at an enterprise versus a total addressable market. How big is the opportunity that lies for either the enterprise or a particular initiative or transformation I'm trying to do in the enterprise? Similarly, we've called out for data and leaders in this space to think of the data TAM. So we talk about something called total addressable value with data, or TAV. So that is one of the KPIs or metrics we've defined in the books, where we advise the leaders to first think of your TAM for data, or TAV as we have called it. Right? So that's kind of one, just giving a sneak peek on how you could kind of think about, and you see the correlation here with an enterprise. So you almost need to think of data being your own enterprise, and how you could think of demand and supply. So that's just one example on the demand. On the supply side, we've kind of built an entire framework called the data operating model. And no surprise, it actually links data with the other three pillars. So how could data be working with existing pillars of people, process, and technology to really scale your data supply? Because for data to really be used, you need people to adopt, of course, this data. You need the right processes in your data landscape itself, and you need the right technology, including AI capabilities, for data to be really successful in your enterprise. So we kind of go into this from a demand and a supply side of things, and we've kind of built a whole maturity framework on this, where enterprises can start measuring themselves today over 6 months, 1 year, and track how they are on this data journey of sorts from a maturity perspective. So that's a long answer to the question.
No, that was amazing. I was just mentally taking notes, because I'm like, this is so much useful information for, everyone listening out there, future business leaders. That is incredible advice. And I promise that I'm not trying to give away all the secrets of your book, but kind of just taking what you just said, because that was incredible. If I am a business leader listening today, based on all of that, what is the one thing that maybe I can start looking into today, or one piece of advice out of all of that you think is extremely valuable, someone can start today if they are leading a company or plan to? What advice would you have for a future founder, executive who does want to further embed data, AI into their company, potentially is a little intimidated, might not know where to start? What's one thing that they can kind of take away from today, and potentially even start today or this week, sometime soon?
So again, it's difficult to give just one advice, but let's maybe break it down for me to answer easier. So let's say you are already part of an existing enterprise. The most important thing to realize is where data is today in the whole context of your business strategy, right? A common gotcha perhaps is data is somewhere lying as a byproduct within one of these existing pillars. So for example, your data probably might be lying as a byproduct of technology. So you might have core technology applications, and data is being generated as part of these applications, but then it's more a byproduct lying within your technology, or it's a byproduct lying within a process. You might have great business processes today, but data is a byproduct of that, right? So one important aspect is to recognize first your as is situation, where you are today, where is data today probably hiding, and try your best to get it out of that byproduct area, and bring it really up and elevate it, again using people, process, and technology. So you need to have the right people who need to be chartered with having the right data ambitions. You need to have the right processes and the right technology. So not going to happen overnight, but at least from a thinking perspective, from an existing enterprise, I would say look at where data is today hidden. And if you're kind of starting a new enterprise, probably it's a bit easier because you don't have burden of what has happened in the past. So very important then to look at the opportunity. So very clearly have a good understanding And as I said, the TAM is probably a great example, or TAV as we've called it in the book. Start identifying what is the TAV of data, not just looking at your immediate business use case, but if you had all the data that you could get, there might even be completely new business models built out of data. So, right. So, I mean, we've got great examples of big companies. I mean, Netflix is just an example. How they reinvented the whole media space just by having a data and having the right technology to support that data. Right? So, because data is what is there powering your preferences of what you would like to see, and the way they've kind of built their entire user interface is all data led. Right? So look at the space you're trying to get into as an entrepreneur, and the possibilities and the TAV as we've called it for data. So that's kind of a couple of advices.
Absolutely. No, that's incredible advice, especially for someone that potentially might be intimidated. But I think that that's perfect for just inspiration for business leaders to take away from. I want to kind of keep going along this advice and kind of just change directions a little bit. Outside of AI, I certainly want to recognize that you went on your own entrepreneurial journey writing this book, doing all of this research. What advice would you give to someone in the Quantic community, whether they're thinking about writing a book or potentially launching their own business, their own venture? It's certainly no easy feat. What advice would you give to someone looking to do one of those things?
Yeah, a lot of things, and I'm still learning myself as well. So would love to also keep hearing feedback. But I think Quantic has been really great in terms of building the right habits, if you will, towards this journey. So the first thing, as I said earlier, is identify a space which you feel you're passionate about, and b there's an open space here. In my example, just for writing the book, we found there isn't enough being talked about or written about on this specific space. Another important piece is seek help. I mean, for me, for example, being a first-time author, one of the motivations was, of course, can I write it? But I also felt having a co-author in this case is great. So very similar for like an entrepreneurial journey. Maybe there are skills that a co-founder would have that you may not have, and you can kind of complement each other, right? So similarly, in our book journey, we found we kind of complemented each other really well. So that's been very helpful. And of course, along the way, we've always gone on the journey of continuously, how should I say, refactoring what we thought of. So continuing from the idea, we knew the core idea, but a lot of the details we didn't know. And along the way, we found great mentors, contributors, people who gave feedback. As I said, Audie, who came up with the case study. So all of these helped shape a lot of the details. So it's not like we knew exactly this is how the 250 pages or 225 pages of the book is exactly going to look like. So similarly, in an entrepreneurial journey, I guess you wouldn't know each curve and turn and feedback you might get, but very important to not be stuck on your initial thought process. I know, for instance, we kind of completely revamped sections or chapters based on feedback we got, and that's because we didn't completely tie ourselves with the book and every word we wrote in it, and saying that we treat it as Bible. So we were continuously willing to re-look at our chapters or sections of the book depending on the feedback we got. So similar kind of approach has been helpful. And then the last advice I would say is which we've learned recently, so just sharing it across. A book is not done when you've finished writing it. So we initially thought, hey, we've finished writing the book. That took us almost a year to write, so we did great. Similarly, when you start an entrepreneurial journey, you might spend a lot of time building MVPs and an initial product, but actually a lot of effort happens after the book is written, because you need to ensure the rest of the world knows what you've written, what you're trying to accomplish with it. So that's another advice is, we of course get feeling that, we can now cool off once the book is written or once the product is launched, but actually a lot of the hard work starts there.
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. I love it's kind of just learning along the journey and learning as you go, expanding your perspectives. And that makes perfect sense. And to just kind of build off of that, it would not be a Quantic conversation if I did not get to ask you about your Quantic experience. So obviously this is a huge success. How did your Quantic Executive MBA experience influence your approach to writing the book? And as you mentioned, it's not over once it's written, also promoting the book and marketing it. I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, immensely. I mean, it first gave me the context of what an entrepreneurial journey looks like, and of course, this is not like a as probably large scale as starting your own company, but writing your book is, in, as you rightly put it, almost a sort of entrepreneurial journey in itself. So I think the Quantic EMBA was helped me build my fundamentals in. I mean, if I just put it the other way around, if I didn't do my EMBA, I might have uh, tried to write the book in a long stretch, might not have done enough research. For example, Quantic EMBA helped me understand the importance of research, understanding the space you're trying to get into. So similarly, me and my co-author, we spent a lot of time researching the space, identifying, as I said, other books in the space, gaps, uh, clear message that we want to bring across to our readers. And then, as I said in the last answer, also continuously repivoting, right? And that's something we figured in the capstone of the Quantic EMB as well, where we kind of started on a core idea, but kept pivoting based on feedback we got and discussions we had as a group. So I think those kind of memories almost came back to me. And then the last but not the least, it also helped me understand how to balance time a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm still good at it, because I would love to give more time personally as well to my family. But in a way, Quantic EMB helped me to already prepare for how to balance uh, professional, family, plus in this case, the book time, but during the Quantic duration, the time spent on EMBA as well was in parallel to all of these, right? So it helps really uh, understand how to focus on each of these during those time boxes, but then completely not think of that when you're in the other bucket of personal or professional life, right? So that has been really helpful learning from the MBA experience as well.
That's great to hear. And I think, I mean, speaking for myself and probably a few others out there, I think we could all do a little bit better on just managing time management. And there just doesn't seem to be enough time in the day. So,
Absolutely.
but that's great to hear about your experience. I know we're almost at time, Sid, but I'd love to get to at least one of the audience questions. We have some great questions coming in. So thank you again for writing them. I really liked this one because I think you touched upon it in a lot of your answers. And as you said, it's not just the data side of things in business. You really do have to combine a lot. And so we have a question coming in from Raymond. How can I lead a mindset, like a cultural mindset shift in my team or company to treat data as a daily decision making tool? So not just the reporting side of things. Would love to know your perspective on that.
Oh, that's a great question. So thanks, Raymond, for asking this. And again, I mean, the book goes a lot deeper into it, but kind of the angle here is the synergy between data and people, right? Because this is what we are talking about. So this fits in very well with how the four pillars actually need to work with each other. It's not like one pillar is fighting over the other to be the leader in the operating model. So, I mean, multiple areas here. Of course, the common ones, very high level, to start the discussion, is starting from the top, right? So this is why we've hinted this book to be for starting from the boards and the CXO. So they showing the direction from their side is a great way for the rest of the enterprise to also start adopting data in their daily lives. The second, as I said, is the value that it adds, right? So if every person in the enterprise knows that if I have the right data in my hands, what is it I can do with it? So having that information of, just to give again examples, if I am working in the manufacturing shop floor of a company, if I knew that I have the right data about, I don't know, weather information, which may cause a certain supplier to not give me parts. So how do I prepare for that? So right, that's a business decision you can take proactively because you have the data. Or if you're an auditor in the company, or trying to be compliant, knowing that an upcoming regulation that is very important for your industry or for the region you're part of, and knowing that these are the data points you need to collect but you don't have parts of them, helps you prepare upfront, knowing, hey, that audit is going to come up. If I need to be ready for that and provide the right proof that I have all the data in place. So knowing first how data is going to help in each and every individuals or teams in the enterprises is very critical. And that's where in the book we've gone through an entire value stream exercise where we've kind of given practical examples both from Audi and from our experiences on how this could look like and how you could start mapping it, and eventually how you could start measuring it as well in terms of value.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that answer, Sid. And I feel like even just in this 40-minute conversation, I feel like I've gained so much insight into things. And it really is so true. I feel like you said, you have to holistically kind of combine all of these quote unquote pillars to make things successful and make them work. So like I said, I'm sure all of our audience members too have taken away such great advice. I can't thank you enough for joining us today, sharing your insight. And it was so great to get a preview of the book. I know myself, and I'm sure many listening today, we're all excited to grab copies of Data as the Fourth Pillar. That being said, though, before we do wrap, I want to make sure that you get a chance to let everyone know, where can they follow your work? Where can they follow you? Stay up to date on the book. Like I said, we're all excited to read more after these insights today.
No, absolutely, Kelsey. So thanks for the opportunity again. I mean, love the conversation, and I'm sure I will go learning as well in this exercise, right? So we are all continuous learners. So the book, as you said very well, is called Data as the Fourth Pillar. So highly encourage people to grab a copy. Fortunately or unfortunately, in this case, it's right now not yet out. It's on pre-order. I'm sure we can send links to the website where the book is, or the LinkedIn page of the book, and we'll continuously, me and my co-author, keep sharing updates. The book is planned to be out on 27th of August this year, so we are 3 months or so away. Less than 100 days, I was reminded by AI in this case, by a timer. So less than 100 days for the book to release, and encourage all of our listeners to pre-order. And personally, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Just look up my name, and I'm sure I'm happy to connect and also learn, as I said, from each one of you.
Amazing. No, congratulations again on the book, Sid. Thank you for joining us. And yes, as you mentioned, for all of the audience members tuning in today, or if you happen to be watching this in the future, in the comments, we'll be leaving links to the book and to the LinkedIn page for your book as well. So be sure to check that out. And we'll be looking forward to that. Yes, in about 100 days to reading this, because these insights were wonderful. So thank you all for joining us. And thank you, Sid, for giving us this insight and for taking the time to speak with all of us today.
Thank you, Kelsey.
All right. Thank you all again, and we will see you at the next conversation, and have a wonderful rest of the day.